Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's lecture. This is a lecture on how to manage anxiety with chronic conditions. And my name is Zara, and I'm an occupational therapist. I've been working with chronic conditions for the last 5 years. And I'm happy to be here today explaining some of the stuff that we can do to manage anxiety because this is a huge thing that happens with chronic conditions, and it can be one of the most debilitating things that we have to deal with on top of the symptoms that are already debilitating and really challenging to deal with. There can be this body-based anxiety and cognitive anxiety that happens. So we're going to get into it a little bit today and talk about some of the things that we can do to help manage it. I'm going to make a land acknowledgement. I live in Nelson, BC, which is on the traditional and unceded territories of the Sinixt, Syilx, and Kootenai people. So for those of you who don't know me, I am an occupational therapist, and as an OT, my interest is in function. So some people think of OT and they think of occupation, they think of work, but occupation is a lot more than work. Occupation is anything that occupies your time that's meaningful. So we learn to help support you with function, getting back to doing the things that you need and want to do. And it is my firm belief that everybody with chronic conditions can improve their functioning through the right guidance, through the right support, through the right help. And that's part of what I like to do, is help people, support people, and increase a sense of hope that change is possible, that recovery is possible, healing is possible, gaining function is possible. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that and a little bit about why I believe that. So we're going to chat for about an hour, and then we're going to have time for questions at the end. So feel free to type your questions in the chat as we're moving along here. A little bit more about me. I am an occupational therapist, like I said. I run my own business with chronic conditions. I also have an undergrad in neuroscience and psychology, so I'm a bit of a nerd with the brain and psychology and how our brains work, and definitely have learned a lot over the years about anxiety. And my personal story, for those of you who don't know me, is that I fell off a horse when I was 13. That's me there on the side. I had a hip injury that turned into 10 years of chronic pain that morphed into also 10 years of chronic fatigue syndrome and changed into a massive diagnosis, chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, which I was dealing with for a very long time, and was struggling in all of the ways that I see clients struggle today, and had very little guidance of what to do or how to heal. But thankfully, I was able to find a lot of really amazing supports just through looking at research and honestly, through learning some things in university too. My school had an amazing disability support program, so I was able to take classes and learn about the brain and the nervous system and the body. I did a lot of anatomy classes, so I got to learn about things and piece things together, and I was able to make a full recovery based on that. But it doesn't have to take 10 years like it did for me, 10 to 15 years, however you look at it. It doesn't have to take that long. We can make recoveries. We can gain function. I don't want to sit here and say that every single person will recover, because that's not, I don't know every single person's individual stories, but I do know, because I see it every single day in my practice, that people can definitely gain function. Managing our anxiety can be one of those things that can break the loop that our bodies are in, which I'm going to explain. So this can actually be a really important keystone in recovery. It's not the only thing we need to do, but it is one of the things that can really support our bodies, is through managing some of the anxiety that comes up about and from these conditions. So let's talk a little bit about anxiety. Let's get right into it. So anxiety is basically the ABCs of anxiety. We start with an alarm. So there's attention, there's internal and external stimuli, or perception of stimuli. So we're paying attention to something either in our bodies or in our environments that acts a bit like a trigger, and it causes an alarm. Our body goes, well, what's that? I don't like it. I'm scared of that, right? I think that's going to hurt me, kind of thing. The belief is that after we paid attention to that thing, we use our memory, we use our thinking skills, we use our previous emotions to interpret the stimuli. So if I was previously bit by a spider and I really don't like spiders because I had a bad reaction to it, then my memory of that and my cognition of that, my emotions related to that, is going to say, get that spider away from me, right? So that's going to influence my coping, my decisions, my behaviors. So basically, there's internal and external stimuli that are generally neutral. With anxiety, generally our belief is interpreting something neutral as not neutral. So we're interpreting it as dangerous when it is in fact neutral. That's what anxiety is, right? So if we are interpreting something that's actually dangerous as dangerous, we probably wouldn't label that as anxiety. We probably label that as like a survival response. Your body's just responding as it should to a dangerous situation. Anxiety is when the belief or the way we cope with the belief or with the way we cope with the alarm doesn't really match the situation. So there isn't actually danger, but our body is going, oh gosh, there could be danger, but it's not present yet. So there's an interaction between the deep parts of our limbic system, like our amygdala, which we'll talk about a little bit more, our fear center, and our prefrontal cortex, meaning our thoughts and beliefs and emotions about something. That's sort of like the basics of how anxiety works. So if we had a food aversion, this is a way of thinking about it, right? So if we're talking about, like, let's say one time you had pasta salad and the pasta salad made you sick, right? So the next time that you see pasta salad, if it was bad enough that you were sick, you're going to see it. So you're going to have attention to it. That's the alarm. You're going to go, oh, that's pasta salad. The belief, so the appraisal of your stimuli in your memory, you go, oh, that pasta salad made me sick before, right? So you have this memory of it, and your coping is to avoid it, to say, I'm not going to eat that because it's going to make me sick, right? But the pasta salad itself is neutral, right? All pasta salad is not poisoning. All pasta salad is not going to make you sick, but our bodies are starting to appraise it differently, which means we make a different decision about it. So there's like a loop that starts to happen because we're appraising something in a certain way, right? We're appraising the worst thing that could happen. So how does this relate to ME/CFS, long COVID, fibromyalgia, the things that people come to this clinic for? Well, with these conditions, there's an initiating factor. So the initiating factor for COVID is COVID, right? For ME/CFS, sometimes it's viral, but sometimes it's stress-based. So it could be like a burnout situation at work. It could be a extreme trauma that happens, could be a surgery, could be an environmental stressor. But basically, there's something that happens that is a tipping point in your stress. So it's a tipping point for your nervous system. It kind of throws the nervous system over the edge, so to speak. And your nervous system may have been throughout your life sort of piling up thing after thing, maybe stress, maybe trauma, whatever. And then you get a virus, and then your nervous system goes, that's enough. I'm shutting down, right? That causes dysregulation loops of not only your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, so that controls everything autonomic in your body, but it also starts these dysregulation loops of your mitochondria and your immune system and your inflammatory systems in the body, your cardiovascular system, and that reinforces more nervous system dysregulation, which can cause anxiety. And then there's anxiety about the illness and other things in life, understandably, right? Because if you Google any of these conditions, boy, is it scary, right? When I first got diagnosed with these conditions, I thought my life was over. Like I was like, okay, I'm young and now I'm never going to be able to do anything, right? It was terrifying. And that anxiety, unfortunately, keeps you stuck in the loop, right? It's like you have more anxiety, your nervous system's more dysregulated, the other systems in your body become more dysregulated, and then boom, more anxiety. Oh my gosh, what a terrible loop to be in. It's never ending, right? It just feeds back in on itself. So something important to understand here is that what we're talking about with these conditions is dysfunction of your symptoms, but it is not an ongoing disease process or damage to your systems, right? There is some evidence of damage with long COVID, for example, some evidence of like mitochondrial damage, The cool thing about your mitochondria is that they regenerate. They're regenerative. It's not like you're just born with a certain amount of mitochondria and that's it. They regenerate. So they can regenerate healthier. They also go into certain states. They have certain responses to stimuli. They can come out of those states. So we have to think about it. Even if they're damaged, there's possibility, there's that hope of changing. So this is a really awesome study that I read this morning. Because it's so interesting. I read the whole thing and it's very nerdy, but one of the quotes from this study just basically outlines the pathobiology of myalgic encephalomyelitis, or ME/CFS. And what it says here is ME/CFS does not follow the path of degenerative, neoplastic, chronic infectious, or autoimmune diseases that worsen over time and lead to tissue destruction. So what it's saying here is that this is unlike some other conditions that degenerate or that cause destruction or damage. This is a condition of dysfunction. That is hopeful. That's actually a really hopeful thing, because even if every single part of your body, every single system in your body is running on a dysfunction loop, if we can help it come back from that dysfunction loop, if we can regulate the nervous system, which then regulates other systems, because your nervous system directly talks to your mitochondria, your stress levels, your anxiety levels reducing directly impacts your immune system. It directly impacts your inflammation. Then we can actually treat it. So this is where it becomes tough for some people, because people are just telling me it's psychosomatic and I gotta, that it's a psychiatric condition and I gotta manage my stress levels. You're not managing your stress levels because it's a psychiatric condition. It's not. It's impacting every system in your body. But we're helping you to manage your anxiety and your stress levels, because that quite literally taps into all the other systems in your body, and that helps you to heal. So that shouldn't be dismissive or make us feel like, oh, it's all in my head. It's more like, oh, cool, I have way more power than I thought I did. I have way more agency and control than I thought I did, right? So that's why it's important. That's why managing our anxiety, managing our stress is important. So the nervous system is very popular these days. We talk about it a lot. What does it mean, though? So when we're talking about the nervous system, there is our central nervous system, and there are changes in the central nervous system with these conditions, namely your glial cells produce more inflammation. There are also changes in the peripheral nervous system. So your autonomic nervous system, which controls all of the automatic parts of your body. So if you think about automatic things in your body, what are those? They're like your heart rate, your digestion, your breathing rate, your pupil dilation, whether you're sweating, but also your survival responses. So if you have dysautonomia or dysregulation of your autonomic nervous system, then you're probably going to be stuck in a survival mode. So basically what happens, there's a stress cycle. So typically in a healthy control body, we have a relaxed system. We encounter a threat. So let's say there's a lion chases me down. I engage in my fight or flight. I run away from the lion. Then I return to safety. So I lock myself in a house. Then what happens is I'll discharge the energy. I'll shake, I'll cry, I'll scream, I'll hug somebody, and the energy gets discharged, and then I return to regulation. I return to being relaxed. But remember what we just said about these conditions. When you've come to these conditions, whatever happened to you that was the initiating factor of the condition was a tipping point. It was like you just went over the edge of a waterfall and now you're trying to get back up to that river, but it's far away, right? So basically, the return to safety becomes a little bit more challenging because your body is now running these loops of dysregulation, right? So we might be stuck in a survival mode, meaning we might be stuck in fawn, which is giving the threat something it wants. We might be stuck in flight, which is that energy, anxious energy, running away, anxiousness, nervousness, or fight, right? Frustration, anger, fighting back. Freeze, which is deer in the headlights, or faint, which is collapse. Now, the interesting thing about ME/CFS is that oftentimes our nervous systems get so deep into dysregulation, meaning that we are in a survival mode when there's no threat present anymore. The nervous system gets so deep into dysregulation that we end up all the way down in faint, meaning that your body is saying, we are in such grave danger. You need to stop producing energy and we need to just collapse, right? So we're stuck there. And the way out is to help us to feel more safe, to orient to a sense of safety. Because what's happened right now, there are loops, again, those loops that are running in your body of your immune system feeling like it has to protect you. Your cardiovascular system, literally your endothelial cells in your cardiovascular system are not functioning properly because you're in a state of survival. They're functioning as if there was a lion in the room all the time. And that's how we're responding to it. Or that the virus is still present when it's not, right? There's some theories out there about persistence, like viral persistence, but there's a lot of people who have COVID, a lot of people who have Epstein-Barr virus and still have it active, or not active, but still have remnants of it in their body in the same way that we might when we have ME/CFS, but it's not impacting them in the same way because the nervous system is reacting differently to it. The immune system's reacting differently to it. So we get stuck in these loops because your nervous system or your body in general is just convinced that there's a threat present still. So we have to help it orient to safety. So by reducing our anxiety, we can orient more to safety. So what do I mean when I say orient? So we have an orienting system in our body. If I'm walking along in the woods and I hear a loud sound, I'm going to orient to that sound, meaning I'm probably going to turn my body and look to see what it is, right? So if I turn my body and I look and it's a squirrel, I'm going to go, oh, false alarm, and continue my behavior. So I've oriented to the fact that I am safe. So I don't need a survival response. So then if I look and it's a cougar and the cougar's staring at me and they're licking their lips and they look like they're about to attack me, I'm probably going to go into some kind of survival mode, fight, flight, freeze, or faint. Tonic immobility is faint. There's also fawn, but that's not in this study. So what that means is that for people who are chronically dysregulated, your body's bypassing the orienting system. It's not orienting to a sense of safety, which means our alarm bells are going, which means we might be stuck in a state of anxiety, right? Anxious about our symptoms, anxious about what's happening, anxious just in general. We feel shaky, we feel anxious, maybe even for no reason. We just feel that shaking in our body. So one of the things that we can do to help us with this anxiety, this sort of lowest hanging fruit, the simplest thing we can do is build that orienting system back. So we start to orient to the fact that we are safe enough, right? So we're starting to help the body, even just what we did here in the last 20 minutes, me explaining to you what's going on in your body, me explaining these loops to you and explaining that there's no damage, that it's a dysfunctional loop because your body's convinced it needs to protect you. That alone helps you to orient to more safety because you're going, oh, right, I don't have to search for this thing that's horribly wrong with me and this terrible thing that's going on in my body and this like mystery of my body's actually on my side and trying to help me and is always trying to move towards health and homeostasis and balance. That gives us more perspective. And even that in and of itself is orienting. So what we want to do here, one of the ways that we can orient is simply look around, listing things in your environment that remind you that you're safe. So you pause, you go, oh, that's a really nice plant. And you look at it for a minute or a couple breaths. Oh, look, I can see this tree outside my window. There's no threat here, right? oh, look, my hot chocolate, right? There's no threat here. So you're just like basically proving to yourself that you're in a safe environment, right? And by remembering some of this education, you're proving to yourself that you're safe in your body as well. And just acknowledging and recognizing I am dysregulated. Right now, what's happening, my symptom, my fatigue is just my body trying to protect me. My heart racing is my body trying to protect me. My dizziness, my body trying to protect me. I am just dysregulated right now. This is autonomic dysregulation. This is fight or flight or freeze. I'm dysregulated. You're just noticing it and labeling it. You're orienting to it. Then you say, I am safe enough. Or on this page, it's enough because I made a spelling mistake, but I am safe enough, right? If you say that to yourself, that is one of the ways to orient. Right now in this moment, there's no threat, body. Thank you so much for trying to protect me, but there's no threat. And sometimes what happens is that our body gets stuck in the initial threat or the many threats that happen throughout our lives. So sometimes we're stuck as like a toddler that's being abused or whatever, or we're stuck in a car accident that we had when we were 16, or we're stuck in a really stressful job that we were in for 10 years. And your amygdala is like acting as if it's happening right now. Or when the virus happened, right? Your amygdala is acting as if it's happening right now. So if we can go, I am 32 years old. I forgot how old I was there for a second, guys. I'm 32 years old. I live in Nelson. You know, I really like this kind of ice cream. I really like this kind of pizza. You're letting yourself orient to now, right? You're letting yourself say, I am here and now, and I am not in danger. So that is the orienting process. And that's one of the things we can do to help when we're starting to feel that dysregulation, we're starting to feel that anxiety. We also want to notice when we are getting into the 5 F's. So I talk about this in all the classes I teach. This is such an important part of understanding our nervous systems. When we become dysregulated or when we have a symptom, let's say you get really bad fatigue or you're getting a migraine, you're getting some pain. If what happens when we get that is that we start to fear it, so we go, oh my gosh, something's really wrong. This is terrible. This is going to last forever. I'm never going to get out of this. This is horrible. This is going to be the rest of my life. Those fear loops keep the nervous system stressed, keep the immune system stressed, keep all the body systems stressed. And then we're stuck. We're stuck in the loop, right? The fear feeds it. It's like you're putting fuel onto the fire. Getting really frustrated with our symptoms, like, oh, I can't handle this. Here it is again. Why does this have to happen? Right? We need to learn to kind of trust the process and trust that our nervous system can handle it. Hyper focusing on our symptoms too, right? So we're intense, we're frantic, we're like, what's happening? Is it changing? Is it getting worse? Is it getting, how can I handle this? You're looking at it deeply. You're like, you're paying attention to it so much. Your brain will just give you more and more ability to pay attention to it. Trying to fix it. This was my number one problem for so long. I'm just going to fix this. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I'm going to do 110% at all this stuff that Zara's telling me. And then I'm going to get better because I'm fixing this problem. That's just reinforcing that there's a problem in the first place. It's reinforcing that there's something wrong. And honestly, your body's just running on a dysfunction, but it's running the way it should. If there was actually a threat, you would want your body to react this way. If there was a lion trying to eat you, you want to dissociate. You want to have brain fog. You want to be so tired that your body just shuts down because that's a painful experience to have to experience. So it's intelligent. It makes sense for your body to do this. If you have a really bad virus, you want to go lay down because you're protecting yourself, but you're also and giving yourself time to recover through rest. You're also protecting the group, right? So evolutionarily, it makes sense to go into freeze mode. Evolutionarily, it makes sense to be in these modes and for our immune system to function this way, for our mitochondria to function this way. It's not a damage or a bad thing or a disease process. It's literally just a confusion between how much threat is present, right? So we don't have to fix it. We just have to create a safe environment where our body feels safe enough to let go of that. Same thing with fighting it. If we're constantly fighting against it, that's just going to make us exhausted, right? So it's like, I use this example all the time. It's like a toddler that comes up to you and they're really upset and they say, there's a monster under my bed. And you turn to them and you're fearing it. You're really scared of it. You go, oh my gosh, there's a monster under your bed? That's terrifying. That's so scary. They're going to eat you alive, right? Not going to make the toddler feel better. You go, oh gosh, here you go again with the monster thing. Why do you always talk about this stupid monster? Why is it coming back? Frustration, not going to make them feel better. Focusing, where's the monster? Where is it? We have to go find it. We have to find exactly where it is and make sure we monitor it and put up all these cameras and make sure we, it doesn't even move a little bit, because then it's going to get more scary, right? Focus makes it worse. Fixing, okay, there's a monster under your bed. We just got to fix you. You're the problem. It's your fault. You're delusional. You're a wild child. You're, we're trying to fix something that's not broken. It's not the child's fault that they think there's a monster under their bed, right? Fighting it. Okay, there's a monster under your bed. Let's get a sword and a shield and let's fight this monster. Let's get it, The thing is, there's no monster, right? That's all your body needs to know, that there's no monster. It's okay. We don't have to fight against this. We don't have to fear it. We don't have to get frustrated. And it's okay if these things come up. That's a really big lesson in healing too. We can't control whether or not fear is going to come up. We can't control our emotions at all. We can't control our thoughts. We can't control our symptoms. What we can control is our reaction to them. So when the fear comes up, when we go, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, I really don't want to be like this forever, we go, oh man, put a hand on your heart and you just go, yeah, it makes sense that I'm scared right now. This is scary. And I know that right now in this moment, I'm safe enough. So instead of being like, oh, there's no monster under your bed, don't feel that way, don't be scared. You just go, oh, okay, let's check it out. Let's see if there's a monster under your bed. Let's look at the research. Let's look at what Zara said. Let's look at recovery videos. Let's make sure that we're safe right now, that there's no threat here present right now. And that will help us to feel like, oh, okay, I am safe enough. And when we feel safe enough, when we give ourselves compassion and we surrender to the process, we have a sense of acceptance. This is what it is right now, but it's temporary, right? That sense of safety. We're developing this internal compassionate presence similar to a gentle parent that just says, I've got you, I love you, I'm here for you. Rather than you have to fix, you have to change, you have to be different. This is too much for me, I can't handle you. Those may have been things that you heard when you were a kid. Those are not things that we need to tell ourselves now. We need to reinforce that we are a safe presence for ourselves. So like a turtle, I use these examples a lot, but hopefully they're helpful, these analogies. Like a turtle that's scared, they're in their shell. Our job is not to knock on the shell. It's not to scream at the turtle. It's not to force them to come out, to tell them that the turtle is wrong for being scared. The job is just to make a safe environment and then let the turtle come out when it's ready to come out. So our only job is to try and create more of a sense of safety so that the turtle can come out on its own time. So our nervous system can regulate on its own time, because your nervous system knows how to heal. It knows exactly the steps that it needs to take to increase your function, to help you reduce your symptoms. It knows exactly how to come back into balance. It just doesn't feel safe enough to do that right now. It feels like it still needs to protect you. So we're just pulling back those layers of protection. One of the things we can think about is, are we engaging with preoccupation behaviors? So as I go through this list, think to yourself if you do these things, because these are some of the things that are going to increase our anxiety, and they're going to keep that ball rolling, right? They're going to keep that stress. They're going to keep that fire going. So are we constantly checking our phone? Constantly, like the buzzing and the red notifications is causing little spikes of cortisol here and there, and it can be this preoccupation. We got to just check, right? Can we reduce that a little bit? Symptom Googling. So constantly Googling your symptoms, Googling about your condition. Maybe you're reading books, you're listening to audiobooks, you're listening to podcasts, you're constantly consuming, you're taking 5 courses at once, you're constantly consuming a ton of information about this. That is reinforcing that there's something wrong with you, right? This was huge for me. At one point, I think when I was sick, I don't even know, guys, it was a full-time job. I was like probably 20 or 30 hours of researching this a week. Like it was brutal. And I remember talking to my therapist at one point, and she was like, you need to stop doing that. She was like, you need to just like take a break. Like just enjoy the small moments of joy that you can find in your life and focus on that for the next little while. And that was a huge shift for me, was asking myself, do I really want to be doing the things that I'm doing, like meditating 6 hours a day or whatever? Or what do I actually need? What actually feels nourishing for my system, right? So pausing to ask yourself, what do you need? Repeatedly asking for reassurance. There's a limit to this, right? That sometimes we need reassurance, but you know what I mean when I say repeatedly, right? Again and again and again. But what is it that this? It gets to a point where it becomes a preoccupation behavior rather than just something that's helpful for us. Unhelpful habits like drinking, binge eating, binge watching, smoking a bunch, that kind of stuff. Constantly checking your symptoms. A lot of my clients keep lists of their symptoms, which can be okay, but you don't want to do that all the time because it can cause you to hyperfocus on your symptoms. If you are needing to keep a list of your symptoms, also keep a list of positive or neutral sensations in your body so you're balancing it out a bit. Planning or excessive lists, repeating past scenarios over and over in your head, excessive perfectionism or over preparing or checking or procrastinating. So if this is some of the stuff you're doing now, or if this is kind of how you were before, maybe you had a lot of preoccupation with different things before. Like if you think about like a blue heeler dog or like a Kelpie or like one of those herding dogs, they're like hyper fixated on a ball or they're hyper fixated on hurting something, right? Like our brains can get so preoccupied with some things. And a lot of people who end up with these conditions, myself included, might have been pretty type A or like had intensity in their life before, right? Like doing things to the nth degree. Maybe you like were not just a mountain biker, but you did like the craziest runs possible. You know what I mean? Or you at your work, you did 60 hours a week or more, right? Like that intensity translates when we're sick to intensity towards our symptoms, which can become a problem because that is maybe a nice personality trait to have in some ways. But when we're focusing on our symptoms like that, that's not the energy that healing needs. Healing needs a totally different energy, an allowing energy, a softening, a compassionate energy. So it doesn't mean we have to change our personalities or get rid of that, but it does mean we have to change our approach to healing. So something that we can do when we notice that we're engaging in these behaviors, or if we feel like we're getting in these loops of these thoughts and patterns like the 5 F's that are not very helpful, is just engage in meaningful activity. I'm an OT, and this was just drilled into my head in my master's program that meaningful activity is therapy. So a lot of times we get into these boxes of like, okay, I was told by this one program that I have to do 2 hours of brain retraining a day. And that sure works for some people, but it's not really about what we do. It's about how we do it. And genuinely checking in with yourself and with your intuition. Is this supportive for me? And is this something that I actually want to be doing that is giving me energy or giving me life, right? If we're just like beating ourselves over the head, trying to do brain retraining or trying to do nervous system regulation, that's actually going to have the opposite effect on our subsystems, right? There's a point, right? There's not like, I'm not just saying, oh, if you just don't want to do your exercises, don't do them. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm just saying we have to do what's going to feel nourishing for us and what we intuitively deep down in our hearts know is supportive for us rather than what we are just told to do, right? So there's a really big part of healing and recovery that is starting to listen to ourselves and listen to what we need rather than just being told what to do and then doing that thing militantly, right? So that's why it can be really nice to engage in meaningful activity. So like glimmers, these are the things in your life that give you that little sense of a feeling of home or feeling of regulation. Like for me, I love dogs. I love all animals, actually. And when I hang out with animals, pet animals, I'm in the presence of an animal, I feel really good. So I try to add more of that into my life, right? Or it could be scents. It could be like there's certain smells that really trigger a sense of you feeling good. Maybe you spend time in nature and that feels nice for your system. Maybe you have a certain kind of tea that you really like and you make a bit of a ceremony of having that every day, right? So there's different things that might just like trigger a little bit of joy in your nervous system. I did a post on, I think it was TikTok and Instagram a couple weeks ago about like the most unhinged ways that you create joy for your inner child. And there's a really funny list on there of things people do, but some people keep like bubbles in their desk and they blow bubbles, just little things like drawing, but drawing outside of the lines, doing things that are a little bit more enjoyable and silly and fun and funny. Getting a joke book, saving a bunch of funny videos on your phone, little things to bring those tiny moments of joy into your life, because that will take you away from the preoccupation. That will give you a sense of meaning in a life that is otherwise just trying to make your rehab your full-time job, right? Endorphins too. So when we can, working with movement, and I talk a lot about pacing. I'm about to put up a really comprehensive video about pacing on my YouTube channel. So if you want to find that, I'll give you that information after. But pacing, getting really good at that so we can move, right? Enjoying pleasurable activities, seeking things out that actually bring pleasure to our bodies again. Because again, it can feel like our bodies are a bit of a cage and we're just kind of trapped in this thing that doesn't feel good. But even if your body is capable of as much pain as it is capable of and the suffering that it is capable of, I guarantee your body is also capable of a lot of pleasure too. It just means that we have to work with it, sink into it. Think about some foods that you really like. Think about giving yourself a massage or going to get one, right? Like ways that we can increase that sense of, maybe just make a list of things that are enjoyable, low-hanging fruit, things that are funny, make you laugh, things that are pleasurable, right? Things that are meaningful, right? Or creative activities, things that keep you engaged. This will start to shift your brain. And oftentimes it's like a permission thing. It's like we need to give ourselves permission to actually feel like we can do good things, because we often just kind of self-flagellate and we feel like we have to do a bunch of uncomfortable things to get better. And that's really just not the case. It's like we want to balance it out. So how can we affirm safety while we do different activities? How can we affirm safety in general to start to reduce the activation of anxiety and stress in our bodies? There's two ways. I call it show and tell. So we want to show the body that we're safe, and we want to tell the body that we're safe through our mental, through our mind, top down, and through our body, bottom up. So mental affirmations of safety, how do we do that? Well, some common anxious thoughts, right? Like, what if my symptoms never improve? Am I going to be stuck like this forever? What if I can't work or take care of myself? Why is my body betraying me? et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure we all have had all these thoughts at some point in our lives, right? These anxious thoughts about the illness. We want to challenge them. Is having these thoughts actually helping me? Is there something I can say that would be more helpful? Is there a different way of looking at it, right? Because if we're running these loops of thoughts in our brain, it's just like a runaway train. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep feeding the anxiety. That feeds the nervous system dysregulation. That feeds the immune system and the inflammation and the da 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 da. You know what I mean? So it all kind of connects back together. So can I look at this like an experiment? What would I tell a friend in this situation? We want to ask ourselves questions to start to question those thoughts in our heads so that we're not fully just thinking the thing that's unhelpful. That does not mean that we're starting to think something delusional. I'm not going to tell you to do the toxic positivity thing where everything's great. I'm amazing. I feel great. But we can say things that are a little bit more balanced, right? So like, I'm not broken, I'm healing. That is a balanced statement, right? We're moving, or I'm moving towards health, right? My symptoms are just my body trying to protect me. Rest is productive. I can feel safe in my body again, or I can learn to feel safe in my body again, right? Healing isn't a straight line. That's okay. I'm more than my symptoms. I don't have to do it all alone. I can trust my body's pace. So notice that none of these are like, I'm 1,000% better. I feel better than I've ever felt in my life. No, we're not lying to ourselves. We're balancing it out with things that feel like gentle and more balanced than just only the negative or only the anxiety. My nervous system's learning something new, or my nervous system's restoring balance, right? Now, it's really helpful to have a couple affirmations that are just like your go-to affirmations that you say to yourself, but affirmations only go so far. So that's why I came up with this technique. It's called the vibe technique. It's a brain retraining technique, and it's based on a bunch of different brain retraining that I've looked at over the years. It's also based upon like a bunch of research that I read as well about how do we interact with the subconscious mind. I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist, so I have a lot of interest in the subconscious mind. The subconscious is 95% of our brain capacity and our brain power. So it is important that we're influencing the subconscious and not just the conscious. So when we're repeating an affirmation, we're literally just saying it at the conscious mind. I am safe enough. I am safe enough. I am safe enough, which is nice and does help. That is absolutely helpful, but we need to go a level deeper. So this technique helps you to go a level deeper. So I'm going to briefly explain this, but there's also an explanation, or sorry, there's also a meditation version of this on my YouTube channel, and I'm going to release an explanation video of it on there too. So don't feel like you have to like scribble everything down. You can also just check it out later to save your brain power right now. So the brain retraining technique is to rewire your mind. So let's say that there's a thought that you want to embed in your mind. So let's say that you want to embed the thought, I trust my body's pace, right? I trust I'm moving toward regulation, and I trust my body's pace. Okay. So instead of just repeating that a bunch of times, what we're going to do is we're going to start visualizing. That's the V. So you can validate any emotions that come up as you're here, and we visualize. So we imagine ourselves in a life where that new thought is true. So you would literally close your eyes and you would imagine, okay, if I really, really believed, this exercise does not ask you to believe it yet. It just asks you to be a little bit curious about what would happen if you did believe it. So if I really believed that I trust my body is learning how to regulate, I trust my body's pace, how would I act? So you visualize yourself going through the rest of your day. You visualize yourself going through the rest of your week, acting as if you believed that. So would I talk to people differently? Would I hold myself differently? If I really believed I'm going to get through this, this is temporary, I trust my body's pace, I trust my body's ability to regulate, how would that change the way you talk? How would that change the way you walk? And you picture it, you imagine it. And if you have a difficult time picturing things, you just tell yourself a story about it. Well, I would wake up in the morning and I would take a deep breath and it would be easier to breathe and my shoulders would be back as I walked and I would probably talk with more confidence, probably have more of a smile on my face throughout the day. So you're either telling yourself a story or you're visualizing it, because visualizing is a very powerful way to communicate to the subconscious mind. So you're imagining yourself in a life where this new thought is true. Then you move to your inner voice, to your inner dialogue. So you're repeating the thought, and you're repeating the thought several times. I believe in my nervous system's ability to regulate. I trust the pace of my nervous system. You repeat it. You repeat it again and again. That's where the affirmation piece comes in, because it still is helpful. Then behaviors. So now that you've thought about what you would act like and you visualized it, you see yourself doing it for the next week, you actually you shift your behavior. So while you're sitting there, you open up your shoulders, open up your hands, you smile. If you actually believed it, how would you show it on your body? So you actually physically show it with your body, because that communicates through the body that you're starting to believe this more. Then your emotions. So if you believe this, how would you feel? Would you feel relieved? Would you feel happy? Would you feel peaceful? Would you feel confident? See if you can imagine those emotions and maybe even bring some up right now in this moment. So this helps you to embed a belief deeper in your mind that helps you to rewire some of those anxious thoughts that you might be having. So when you're having an anxious thought, just write down what it is, write down a challenge to that thought that's balanced. And maybe you do that with a friend or a therapist or with tools online. Then you can use this technique to embed that thought deeper in your mind. And like I said, there is a video already on my YouTube channel, and I'll be releasing more in the upcoming weeks. Now, we also want to affirm safety through our bodies. So helping our bodies to feel safe. So we can do this through a technique called somatic tracking. Somatic tracking is a way of sitting with a sensation in our body while affirming safety. That's basically all it is. So for example, if right now I felt really a lot of pain, one of the things that I had when I was dealing with all of these central sensitized conditions was I had headaches. I had headaches like 4 days a week, every week. They were really bad sometimes. And if I had a headache, one of the main things I did to help get rid of them, because I don't have headaches pretty much at all anymore. I don't think I've had a headache in the last year. But if I was having a headache, what I would do is somatic track it. So I would pay attention to the pain in my neck, and I would just let it be there. Instead of trying to fight it or fix it, or what do I do, or how do I change it, or I need to get rid of it right now, I can't stand this. How am I going to live my whole life like this? None of that. I just notice it. So you just notice it, kind of like clouds going by in the sky. Just like, okay, yeah, this is, oof, that is really intense right now. Okay. And you imagine like you're like a little Sharpie, you're just kind of drawing around the area of the pain. And you're just noticing it. Again, you're allowing it to be there. You're not trying to change it. You're not trying to avoid it. You're not trying to get rid of it. The exercise is not to get rid of it. It's to be able to sit with it, right? Gabor Mate says, in trying to escape pain, we create more pain. The ultimate goal in life, if we want to be happy, is to be able to sit with our suffering, right? Because suffering is a part of life. We can't ever get rid of it. But when we learn how to sit with it, it actually makes a lot less suffering, because we're not amplifying suffering by resisting it so much. So we're just mindful of it. We just notice. We notice what's happening. And then we say to ourselves, this is a safe signal. I'm safe enough. This is literally just my body trying to protect me. Just an alarm. It's a habit. It's a fear. It's a safe signal. It doesn't really mean anything, right? I was having all this pain in my neck and my head that it wasn't protecting me from anything. It wasn't giving me any valuable information. It was literally just my body freaking out. It was like an alarm going off when I was making toast, right? So you just go, it's a safe signal. And we bring a sense of lightness to it. So we might smile, we might crack a joke with ourselves. And then we find something that feels good. That's the pendulation piece. So we find something else in the body, maybe our nose, our ears, our toes, our hands, that feels good. So we're paying attention to something in the body. We're redirecting our brain to say there are other things here that feel good, right? That feel pleasant or neutral, that are just okay. So you're rewiring your brain to not hyper focus on the negative stuff. You're helping it focus on some of the other stuff that's present as well. So again, you don't have to know how to do this immediately right now. I do have videos of this on YouTube that you can follow along with. Or if you just look up somatic tracking, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere, you'll be able to find some, because there's a ton of videos, not just on my channel, but all over. We can also communicate safety through our breath. So our breath is an important way to communicate safety because we breathe 22,000 times a day. So if we're breathing in a way that's promoting more dysregulation, like we're breathing fast, we're breathing shallow, that's going to keep us in those loops. So it sounds so simple, and it sounds like something literally probably everybody has ever told you, oh, just breathe. But it's profound, the difference that it can make, because it is a little key into our nervous system. So you want to slow your breathing down, make it nice and soft, nice and slow. You can pause at the top, you can pause at the bottom. You want to focus on your exhale, so make your exhale longer than your inhale, twice as long, maybe. Breathe in through your nose, because breathing in through your mouth signals not safe, right? We go, not safe. So breathe in through your nose when possible, and breathe into your diaphragm, right? Into your belly. So your belly should expand on the inhale. If we do this, we practice this, we train our body to breathe in this way, that is going to start to shift our nerves. Like literally, if you just like do this, maybe you do 5 breaths like this a couple times a day for the next week, you're already training your nervous system by telling it 5 times every couple hours, you're safe enough, but you're telling it through the body. Because when we breathe like this, you're physically telling the body that there's no threat present, right? So there's the level of the mind, which is important, but the level of the body actually somatically starts to shift things for our nervous system. We can also communicate that sense of safety through touch, right? Put your hand on your heart. I do this all the time. Give yourself a hug, hold your face, right? Communicating through touch. Communicating through the basic exercise, which I'm not going to go through right now, but you can look it up. It's an eye exercise that stretches out your eye muscles to help you relax. I have an example of it on YouTube. There's also a lot of other examples of it out there. Physiological sigh. This is an inhale, an extra sip of air at the top, and then a long exhale like you're fogging up a mirror. That is a great way to communicate safety to the body, because you're offloading CO2 and you're getting that deep breath into the belly, and you're exhaling. You're giving your parasympathetic that cue that says, we're safe right now. Alternate nostril breathing is another really great way. Basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. You're alternating the nostrils that you're breathing in and out of. There's also an example of this on YouTube, on my channel, or many other channels. And then just general mindfulness. So cueing into the present moment. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I feeling physically with my body, right? So that we're actually telling your nervous system through the body that we are in fact safe enough. So these are how we can create some somatic affirmations of safety that communicate that to the body. There's so many other ways that we can do this. I have like an entire book that I wrote that has a ton of different things that we can do to communicate safety. This is really just the tip of the iceberg. There's also the tip skill. This is a DBT skill. So a way that we can communicate safety to the body through engaging a little bit of our bodies and engaging our minds with our bodies. So temperature, so cold water can be a really good way to like give ourselves a little bit of a shock, a little bit of a wake up, a little bit of a reset. So in DBT, they recommend putting your head in a bowl of ice water, splashing your face with cold water, maybe taking a cold shower. That can be a good reset for the body as long as your body's ready for that kind of stress. They also recommend intense exercise, which might not be great for those of you with ME/CFS or fibromyalgia. We can think about just getting our heart rate up a little bit, like standing up and then sitting back down and allowing our heart to come back down. Paced breathing is what we were just talking about with the send breath. And then progressive muscle relaxation is where we squeeze and release our muscles. So you can squeeze and release different muscle groups or your whole body at the same time. So basically on the inhale, you squeeze your muscles. On the exhale, you release your muscles. And that can, again, get you into your body, but in a different way than into your body with suffering. An extremely sour sensation. So this is not in the tip skill, but it is something that can break the cycle of anxiety. Or if you're having a panic attack, pop a really sour candy into your mouth, and that just gives you something physical to focus on and can stop a panic attack in its tracks. A lot of these things can stop panic attacks, which can be a nice thing to have in your back pocket if you are a person who gets those surges of anxiety or those panic attacks. So with all these skills, there's a lot of different things we can do. Again, like we talked about in the beginning, think about what resonates the most for you. So as you're listening to this, what makes the most sense for you and your nervous system, and what calls out to you as something that you might like to do. So this is the book I was talking about. It's called Regulate and Rewire. You can find it on my website. You're also welcome, if you want, on my website, upliftvirtualtherapy.com. You can join my email list. In the next year, I'm going to be putting out a course similar to, ANS Rewire or the Gupta program or DNRS or these other kinds of programs out there, but just with my sort of style and flavor. And if you want to know when that course is coming out, you can join my email list and I'll send information about that. I also have a ton of free content on YouTube. So as we're going into this clinic closure for the month of September, feel free to check out all the free stuff that I have on my website or on YouTube. And we can stay connected online, either on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or wherever. So I'm also going to be running group hypnosis sessions every other week. So if you want to join those hypnosis sessions, you're welcome to send me an email or find them on Eventbrite. So these are the ways that you can get in contact with me. And now we have half an hour for questions. So the way that we do questions with these webinars is just asking them in the Q&A, which, can I grab it? Where is it? There we go. So yeah, just ask your questions in the Q&A. And let me see if I can pull them up. Okay. Okay. So let's see here. Someone asked, is this a live group or recorded? So it is recorded. And then the recording will go up on the METV on YouTube. So yeah, you can find it there. And then someone's asking about supplements that are effective for anxiety. So there's a lot of different supplements. It depends on what's going on in your body and the underlying reasons for the anxiety. Like for example, there's different things we take if cortisol is the main issue, or there's different things we take in general. But one of the supplements that comes to mind, and again, always chat with the doctor or pharmacist before you take any new supplements, because it can impact your system in ways that you don't want it to. So just make sure that you're talking to someone about it. Magnesium, bisglycinate or taurate crosses the blood-brain barrier. Citrate does not, so you don't want citrate, but taurate or bisglycinate can be a really good one for anxiety to decrease it during the day. Someone's asking, what about the physiological processes if you're low in iron or B12 or other things that affect the body, or in the ability to produce brain chemicals that cause anxiety or depression? Yeah, there's so many reasons why we can have anxiety, right? By the time that you get to a diagnosis of ME/CFS, usually other things are ruled out. So usually low iron or B12 and stuff like that would have been ruled out. If it is a problem, treating them can certainly help. Sometimes low iron can cause anxiety. Sometimes problems with our thyroid can cause anxiety. So yeah, it is definitely important to think about the other factors, especially if there's things that we call low-hanging fruit that can be easily treated, like iron with iron supplements or thyroid problems with thyroid medication. Definitely worth looking into so that you're ruling those things out, and talking to a doctor about it to make sure that you've got a full medical workup is important. Someone's asking, what if your nervous system dysfunction affects your cardiac health and elevates your blood pressure? Does that not do damage to your body? Not necessarily damage. It is a state of dysfunction, right? So generally, when we're looking at autonomic dysfunction, we're looking at changes in heart rate, not necessarily changes in blood pressure. Changes in blood pressure might be due to something else. So like POTS is a heart rate issue. It's not a blood pressure issue. So yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily that there's damage, but if there's comorbidities, then there can be other things that are causing damage. But ME/CFS in and of itself, like we looked at in that study from earlier, is not necessarily a condition of damage or degeneration. Let's see. Just reading through some of the questions here. So I'm just trying to understand this question. It's just a bit longer. So someone was saying, if you have ME/CFS, but also long haul viruses that are reactivated. So there's interesting theories around viral persistence and viral reactivation and stuff like that. If you're constantly, getting, really what would cause more of symptoms is if you're getting more viruses, and then that's impacting your system, it's impacting the stress cycle. But ultimately, no matter what's going on with the viruses and with COVID and stuff like that, there's no harm in regulating our nervous system. There's no harm in reducing our stress, reducing our anxiety, because it ultimately influences and impacts all these other systems in our body. So regardless of what's going on, it's important to be medically evaluated and to get treatment for that. And I don't think that nervous system regulation is the only thing we need to do. I think we need to pace well. I think we need to eat well. I think we need to do other things to lower inflammation, take the appropriate medications and supplements and things like that. I don't think the mind-body approach, the problem with the mind-body approach is that it often just ignores the body, right? We need to pay attention to the body too. So once those things are managed, then the body can start to come back into a sense of being restored. We don't actually have much evidence for the viral persistence being something that just keeps you stuck, like it has some kind of firm hold on you that's never going to let go, because there are ways out of this, because again, it's dysfunction, not damage. So someone is saying, how do you feel about a sense of safety when the world feels quite unsafe right now? It's a great question. That is why we say safe enough, right? So when we're building a sense of safety, I get this question a lot, either the world at large feeling unsafe, or people who are in unsafe situations. So like people who have an abusive partner or abusive family members or whatnot. In the scenarios where there are moments in our lives where we're genuinely not safe, so like your life is on the line, or someone else's life right next to you is on the line, and we need a survival mode actually in that situation, that's not dysregulation. That is a survival mode. There's a difference, right? So dysregulation is being in a survival mode when there's no direct threat present. Now, when we're thinking about being safe enough, what we want to ask ourselves is there a direct threat present right now? Right now, even though there's climate change and there's global threats of war or whatever, right? Like right now in this very moment, am I safe enough to be regulated? Or is it useful for me to be in a survival response? Is it useful for me to be in fight or flight? Is that actually protecting my life? So that's the difference. Is it perceived danger, or is it stressful? Because there's a difference between danger and stress. Someone asked, thoughts on going on vacations. Can the change of scenery help? My daily routines get shaken up when I'm on vacation. Is this harmful or helpful? A lot of my clients over the years, when they go on vacation, they feel a lot better. I don't know if it's like they get more sun in the winter, or if it's that they just feel less pressure from their daily lives, or they're out of the environment where they have a lot of associations with being sick, right? But I have seen a lot of people do better when they're able to leave their environment for some time and just release some of the stress of daily life, for sure. So someone's asking, it's a longer question, but basically, I don't understand how regulating my nervous system is supposed to increase my ATP. Basically, your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, is responsible for your survival modes, right? And freeze mode is the mode that we go into when our body's trying to survive, especially from a virus, right? So if your body's going into freeze, that means it's shutting down. Your body is saying we need to shut down, we need to dissociate, we need to protect by not producing energy anymore. So the signal that your immune system and your nervous system is sending to your mitochondria is to tell them to go into something called the cell danger response. This is it's a theory, but it's the best theory that we have. So telling them to go into the cell danger response, meaning that they are switching out of energy production and they're producing energy in different ways. So it switches glucose metabolism and it switches your ability to produce ATP. So literally your ability to produce energy, because it's preparing your body like there's danger present. It's saying there is something wrong. So the reason why the nervous system regulation stuff helps is because when we're regulating, we're helping our body feel safe. We're helping our body recognize there is not, in fact, a threat that we need to protect from. That then signals an all clear to the mitochondria, and the mitochondria can shift their functioning back. So they're just going into a state of function that's to protect you. It's sort of like a ship that lets the canyons out, but the ship can pull them back in, right? It doesn't have to look like that all the time. The ship can pull the canyons back in, and it reverts to just being a ship instead of like a war machine, right? So it's just a difference in function, and communicating safety through the nervous system is part of that functioning. Now, the second half of this question is that they're confused because they do meditation, nervous system regulation with no effect on their symptoms. This is something I run into a lot with my clients and ran into a lot with myself. I did all kinds of nervous system regulation and meditation for 10 years and it didn't work. Right? I went to India for 6 months and meditated in an ashram and I was not okay still. Right? Why? Because those 5 F's were present. I was still fixated on the fact that there was something horribly wrong in my body. I still really feared my symptoms when they came up. And I was using the meditation and the nervous system regulation as a way to fix myself and a way to make it go away and a way to fight against it. And I was trying to do it perfectly rather than a way to create a sense of safety and build an internal sense of compassion and love for myself, which is a totally, totally different approach. So sometimes it's not what we do, it's how we do it. And oftentimes, if I see a client who has been trying nervous system regulation for years and they're not getting anywhere, there's something to what I just said that's there that we can decode, that we can, work through, or there's an underlying program that's running the dysregulation, like unprocessed trauma can be there. And that means we might need to process some of that trauma so that it can have a release on the system and not keep it stuck in that state. I appreciate the kind words in the comments as well. Thank you. And somebody mentioned When the Body Says No is an excellent book. Yeah, it's a really good book. Gabor Mate is amazing, says a lot of really insightful things. So someone was asking if there's science behind belly breathing. Yeah, there's a ton of science around, it's called diaphragmatic breathing, if you want to look it up in science journals and stuff like that. Using our diaphragm to breathe is good for us because that's what our diaphragm is for, is to help us breathe. When we're not breathing with our diaphragm, not breathing into our belly, we're using the top of we're using our external muscles up in our neck and shoulders, and that can get exhausting. It can cause more fatigue. It can cause headaches. So our diaphragms are designed to help us breathe, and there's definitely a ton of evidence supporting that. Yeah. So someone asked, does sour sensation for panic attacks work if you love sour sensations? The idea is that it's just an overwhelming sensation for your body to pay attention to. So whether it's a splash of cold water or, a bit of increase in exercise, or you're squeezing and releasing your muscles, it's giving your body something else to pay attention to other than the fact that your heart rate's going up and you're feeling tense and you're feeling nauseous, right? And when I say a sour candy, I mean like a really sour candy. So there is candy out there, I think it's called toxic waste, that's like about the same pH or close to the same pH as battery acid. It's super, super sour. So those, I'm salivating just thinking about it actually. So those sensations are like overwhelming. They're like, whoa, your nervous system's like, oh my gosh, or like a really strong mint, like an Altoid or something that has that super, the idea is it's a distraction for your body. Someone was asking about availability to take on new clients for working one-on-one. I do have a wait list that's weeks out right now, but you're welcome to add yourself to the wait list, or because people cancel all the time. So yeah, absolutely, I can do that. And somebody asked to walk through the vibe again. Yeah, so I don't have the time to do that right now, but you can go on my YouTube channel, so Uplift Virtual Therapy on YouTube, and look for the vibe technique. It's on there and it walks you through step by step how to do it. I'm also going to be uploading, so that's a meditation video. I'm also going to be uploading an explanation video of it. So feel free to, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, then you will know when that comes up. And someone was asking how to pace, but don't give attention to symptoms. So the idea is that we're not giving attention to symptoms. The idea is that we are responding to symptoms, but we're not reacting to symptoms. So when your symptoms come up, you're not reacting with those 5Fs. You're not reacting with fear or frustration or, fixing or fighting. You're responding. You're going, oh, here's a sensation that's coming up. That's okay. That's just my nervous system trying to protect me. And you're taking a break if you need to take a break. You know what I mean? So you're kind of allowing yourself to pace in that way by listening to your body. You're never ignoring your body, but we're just not freaking out when it happens. So it's a difference between, like, if my fire alarm went off right now and I go, oh my gosh, there's the fire. I'm sorry, guys, I gotta go. Versus me going, oh, that's probably just my roommate making toast in the kitchen. 1 second, guys, I'll go check it out. Right? So it's a reaction versus a response. And this is something we have to train ourselves to do. We're not going to be perfect at it right away, but we're training ourselves to react differently when the symptoms come up. We're not ignoring them. How would I address anxiety in the middle of a work situation? I would probably try to belly breathe, focus on where my feet are too. So feeling grounded, noticing the sensation of my feet on the floor, notice doing a deeper breath with a longer exhale. You can do that without anybody seeing it. And if you can, excuse yourself to go to the bathroom and get a moment to yourself, then you can do some of the other exercises too that you might not want to do in front of someone. So someone's saying they can get into fight or flight really quick, and it's challenging to be in the moment to focus, especially with the brain fog. Yeah, so what I recommend is having a list of things that you can do that feel easy enough for your nervous system and have it readily available. So have it on your phone or have a little sticky note that you can see so that when you are in fight or flight, because it's so hard to remember what to do when you're overwhelmed, your nervous system is engaged, you have something you can quickly reference and just be like, yeah, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And then you can spend some time doing it. Or you can save on your phone a list of meditations that you like, 2-minute, 5-minute meditations that, can just recenter you. And then you can just click on them. So you just want to make it easy for yourself when you're in that state. So someone was saying, any tips on physical anxiety in contrast to mental? So yeah, our anxiety could either be very physical without very much thoughts running through our head, or it could be a lot of what if, and challenging thoughts. So when it's more physical, that's when we do more of the somatic affirmations of safety. That's where we show our body that we're safe, because in that moment, we don't really have the thoughts to work with. So we'd work with more the second half of the techniques that I was talking about today. Someone was asking, do you have any strategies for stopping the replaying of past events? So again, you want to kind of ask yourself, like, is this a story that I'm telling myself about the past events? Like I'm a bad person, or I didn't do a good enough job, or everybody hates me, or whatever the story you're telling, the anxiety. If there's a story associated with that repetition, then maybe you would use something like the vibe technique to help you come up with a different story and to repeat that different story to yourself. Now, if it's just that you're anxious generally, then you can break the anxiety, especially by coming into the present moment. So the mindfulness that I was talking about, what do you see? What do you hear? What can you feel right now, here and now, sort of grounding into that presence in the moment will, and anytime your brain goes to the past and goes to those scenarios and repeating them, redirecting it, saying, okay, brain, thanks for that. Now we're going to focus on this, right? Or even just giving yourself some time, give yourself 15 minutes a day where you can focus on it. You can journal about it, you can write about it. And then outside of that time, refocus your brain to the present moment. Someone has said, you mentioned a pacing resource that you would address later. So yeah, what I meant by that is I'm going to be posting a comprehensive video on my YouTube channel about pacing and how to pace. from everything I've learned from my clients and research over the last 5 years of working with these. So that's going to be on my YouTube channel probably in the next couple weeks. So if you want to see that, you can just subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's Uplift Virtual Therapy, and then that will come out, and you'll be notified when it comes out. Yeah, and then someone was sharing the benefits of listening to music for anxiety. That can definitely be a really, really nice way to soothe the brain. Oh, this is nice. So someone said when they go to the grocery store and they're having a panic attack, they go down the frozen food aisle and grab something and put it on their wrist, and that helps a lot. Or bringing a peppermint with them to breathe while they're in there, have that distraction. That's nice. That's a nice specific functional skill. Thank you for that. Someone was asking, what are some strategies that can be really effective when we might be in a scenario that is related to the initiating event for us? So for example, their family stress was part of the initiating event. So now when they're around their family, they feel constant anxiety about causing a flare, which then of course the anxiety creates the factors for a flare. Yeah, so we get caught in that loop. So I'm sure that you're here, right? So that means you've put work in, that you've probably grown since this has happened. So one of the things that you can tell yourself, and maybe you can tell yourself with the vibe technique, like before you go and see your family or after you see your family, is that like, I have new skills now. I'm not the same person I was back then. I now know that this influenced my nervous system, and just knowing that allows me to respond differently, right? I know that this is stressful, and I know that I can respond differently. Those kinds of thoughts can be helpful in switching how your body manages that situation. Because you hit the nail on the head that you're kind of just stuck in that cycle now. So another question, what do you do when anxiety comes from the body? So something like hyperadrenergic POTS, which can feel a lot like anxiety. Yeah, because POTS is dysautonomia, right? So it's dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system. It is quite literally fight or flight, which is why it feels like anxiety. There's a lot of adrenaline and cortisol associated with that. So again, it's coming back to those body-based things. So the things that we talked about in the last half, changing your breath, resourcing touch, working with your eyes, that kind of stuff. And there's a lot more tips out there, like I said, in all the resources that I have. Yeah. How often do you find that people need to temporarily stop working, even a calm job, in order to convince their nervous system that it's safe? There can be a lot of factors there, and there can be a lot of underlying beliefs or relationships associated to jobs. So there are ways that it can be stressful. There are also ways jobs can be supportive. So I think it's individual depending on how it's impacting you. If you feel like you're like just kind of keeping your head above water each day, then it can be really good to step back from your job for a while so that you're giving yourself a little bit more space and ability to come back into regulation each day. If it's financially possible for you to do so, then yeah, I mean, it can be really nice to have that extra time for your system. Someone was saying, it's weird, but I'm smelling odors that my family members can't smell. Is it normal with anxiety? Sometimes when our body is a little bit more hyperactive, like if you're smelling something that's actually there and other people can't smell, it's just because you're more hyper vigilant. So a lot of us are a bit more sensitive, like the amygdala is more sensitive, so it's picking up on more signals from the environment. So you'll notice that you smell things people don't smell. You might see things people don't see. You might jump more than some people because your body's just picking up on more subtle sensations. It has a lower threshold for things because it's more alert to the environment. Something really cool about this, though, I will tell you from my own experience in recovery, is that I am a super sensitive person. Like I mean, physically sensitive and probably emotionally sensitive, but I will pick up on smells that other people don't smell all the time, and have the like sensation of things that other people might not be aware of. But the really amazing, cool thing about this for me and my recovery was that once I was able to stop identifying things as dangerous and I started to feel safe, that sensitivity became a really good thing for me. Because now when I eat food, it tastes better, right? When I smell something good, it smells better. And it's actually like once you're able to stop picking up on everything as scary and dangerous, things actually, that sensitivity is like a superpower, which is kind of cool to think about. And a really beautiful part of healing, I think, is that we get to shift towards more enjoyment in life because it is our superpower to be able to feel things deeper. Someone said how to find creative outlets when all your energy is being used to just exist. Yeah, that's a great question. We have to think about the very lowest like energy thing that we can do that would still satisfy something. So it could be something as simple as like making a Pinterest board of like beautiful art, or getting an adult coloring book and just coloring small amounts while you're in bed. Knitting is a really common thing that I did and that a lot of people do. So there's really low energy level things that we can do that are even lower energy than being on this call or being online or something like that. So exploring those things and getting a little creative with it. Someone said, when I suppress my symptoms, other symptoms will arrive one after the other. How can I avoid this? We avoid this by not suppressing any symptoms. We don't want to suppress our symptoms at all. Your symptoms are there trying to get your attention. And if you do not give them attention, they will try in other ways to get your attention, like a little whack-a-mole, right? So what we want to do is learn to feel our symptoms and be with them. And somatic tracking, the tool that I mentioned earlier, is a really great way to do that, to learn to be with your sensations in a neutral way. So I definitely recommend using somatic tracking. You can find a ton of videos like that online. Okay, well, thank you all so much for being here today. I hope to connect with you online and see you guys in online spaces on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or wherever. You're also welcome to email me or in classes. It's great to be here. This is one of my biggest passions in life. And thank you all so much for listening and for being a part of this. And I hope that you all can take some of this and take it into your lives and help to have a safer and more regulated nervous system. Be kind to yourselves, take care of yourselves, and we will see you again soon.